The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
All eyes on Ashburn. Will number 5 take the practice field today? Will we see Jaden Daniels out there, or will we go through another day of hand-wringing and wonder if he'll be playing against the Chicago Bears? We'll get into that. World Series is about to start. Boy, there was a time when the anticipation for the World Series was as big as anything in sports, even bigger than the Super Bowl, believe it or not. I'm going to throw some numbers at you, which indicate where we are with baseball today, and they seem to be quite happy with them, so, I guess it's all relative, but that's something else. The commissioner, Rob Manfred, was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and we'll hear some of that conversation in the next hour as we roll towards 11 o'clock with Bram Weinstein, who I'm sure will have plenty of thoughts on the Jaden Daniels situation. I will get into more on that in just a minute. He didn't practice yesterday, and there really isn't any more information than that. They'll continue to monitor his progress. They don't really have to do anything until, I think the exact time is 2:55 on Sunday. It's a 4:30 kickoff against the Bears, so a little bit, an hour and a half before kickoff, they have to release the inactives. So he'll either be starting or inactive on Sunday, and, Dan Quinn may walk it right up to the line. He may have him fully practicing today and fully ready to go. But, why not keep the Bears guessing as to who's going to be the quarterback? Now, the offense, they say, doesn't change very much, whether it's Marcus Mariota or Jaden Daniels doing the quarterbacking. But it is, I think, important to keep them guessing. And I'm going to get into this more in a second. But this is what really struck me today. There was a time when World Series games, I know there were only 3 channels in those days, and they weren't up against football and all that, but 30 million, 50 million people watching, no big deal, right? I mean, those were the numbers that baseball used to get. And now we got a World Series from last year that averaged 9.1 million viewers per game. Now, granted, they were not sexy teams. You had the Texas Rangers playing the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think that's, kind of a snoozer nationally. You got the 1 and 2 markets now. I mean, there's no market excuse. You got blue blood baseball teams. You got teams that have been in World Series more than any others. You got the Yankees in for the 41st time, the Dodgers in for the 25th time. They've met 12 times over the years, the whole thing. But these numbers really stunned me today. And these are numbers that are up. They're happy with this. We had in both series, both the ALCS and the NLCS, the number 1 market in the country. And in the NLCS, we had the number 2 market playing the number 1, right? We had the Mets and the Dodgers, and then Cleveland playing the Yankees. So it's as good as you can get market-wise, and there's no local TV to defray these numbers. These are all national numbers. That's how things work once they get into the playoffs. According to Nielsen, the 2 series averaged 5.35 million viewers on Fox, Fox Sports 1, and TBS. That's the highest number since 2017. I guess intuitively I knew this, but just to see them and to think that the women's NCAA championship game, I know it's Caitlin Clark, but that drew 18 million people on a Sunday afternoon. These are night games where you're supposed to get more viewers because you got the primetime audience, the whole Megillah. According to MLB, Game 1 of the NLCS on October 13th between the Mets and Dodgers averaged 20.6 million viewers combined in the U.S. and Japan. Well, yeah, with Shohei, you're going to get a big audience in Japan. The estimated 12.1 million average in Japan made it the second most watched MLB postseason game in history. In other words, 8 million came from the U.S., matching the number 1 and the number 2 market, Mets and Dodgers, but it had 50% more viewership in Japan. And I understand that in Japan, baseball is a bigger deal than it is here, but it's just crazy numbers. It really is. And I don't know what the World Series will average. I would imagine they'll get into double digits. But, these numbers here, 5.5 million, 5.3 million, that's what the unwatchable Pro Bowl used to get before they finally canceled it. But baseball, I guess they have found their spot. They have found the area where they are comfortable. Rob Manfred was just about giddy when he was on Dan Patrick's show yesterday, so you hear some of that coming up. But it's remarkable. And here's part of the shift, too. This story coming out of Michael McCarthy in Front Office Sports. They do sports business. And there's a new league that's starting up, partnering with TNT. It's called Unrivaled, a 3-on-3 league. And Breanna Stewart is part of getting this off the ground, one of the great players in the WNBA. They were reportedly offering a Caitlin Clark a Lionel Messi contract offer to play in their upcoming season. It says the deal would comprise components similar to Messi's $150 million Major League Soccer contract, in which the Inter Miami star received partial ownership and will earn a revenue share of the league's subscription broadcast package with Apple TV. I mean, he's the guy that brings the eyeballs in, and so does she. They just did a list of the most marketable athletes in the world, and Messi was ranked 5th. Clark ranked 4th, just behind LeBron James, and this is, I guess, more of a worldwide thing than national. Real Madrid star Vinicius Jr. and American gymnastics star Simone Biles, number 1. I would not have had Simone Biles number 1 on this list. Recently, Unrivaled had a deal with TNT. It's a multi-year partnership, and they begin play in Japan. They'll feature 30 players competing on 6 teams in 3-on-3 basketball. That wouldn't entertain me, but I guess they figure enough people are interested that they can make it work. And if they pay Caitlin Clark that kind of money, they give her part ownership, and she draws people in, as she did in college basketball and the WNBA. Excuse me. Why not? All right. Let me get to what Dan Quinn said yesterday. He announced before practice that Jaden Daniels would not be participating. And he said, he's being as coy as he possibly can. He's not going to tell you anything about the injury and anything like that, and he's just going to monitor the progress. He did talk, though, and this, this kind of goes with the territory every time we have one of these matchups. But you got Caleb Williams going number 1, Jaden Daniels going number 2. I don't know how you get more motivated to play a football game. I mean, you only play 17 of them. You ought to be motivated to play anyway. But the question came up, would Jaden be more motivated to play because it's Caleb Williams coming in Sunday?
Do you think the opportunity to play Caleb is giving Jaden motivation to want to play this weekend?
No. I think you guys have all been around Jaden, and like anybody, anywhere, anytime is really the mindset for him. Like, I think at his core, Sam, that's one of the things I really admire about him, is just like his readiness, his wanting to go prove it. So, no, much like we talked about Lamar a few weeks ago, like they're not playing against one another. So, like, it's about him and the readiness to get ready and help our team. Ultimately, that's why so many of his teammates really gravitate towards him. They know how much he puts it in and goes for it, and that's why he's seen as one of the great teammates around here.
And he wants to be out there for every game, as he should. Marcus Mariota did the news conference yesterday. Like, Wednesday, it's a league deal. Like, the coach talks and the starting quarterback. They both are supposed to have news conferences. So even though we don't know if Marcus Mariota will be the starting quarterback, he took the first team reps yesterday. So he was the one that went to the media afterwards and had a little sit down with them and talked about coming in last week when Jaden got hurt against Carolina and the ability to step in and pull off the win.
It's never easy when the starting quarterback goes down. So it's really a collective effort from everybody to step their games up, and our guys unfazed. And, going into this week, just trying to prepare and be ready to go if I am called upon. But I think our guys do a great job of helping that transition.
You've obviously been through some of this before with Jaden's going through. So what kind of things have you talked to him about to just help him through this period?
I think first and foremost, just being smart and understanding what's most important. I think early on in my career, you get very worked up about, I got to play this week. Sometimes it's focusing on your health in the long term. So if it gets to that point and he doesn't feel like he's ready to roll, I'm here to help kind of that. And I want him to understand that and feel comfortable with that. And also I think it's us as a quarterback room to make sure that, if he's not getting the amount of reps that he usually gets through the week, helping him get those reps in the quarterback room, helping him manage that so that if his number is called and he is playing on Sunday, that he's ready to roll too. So, I think it's just a collective group. It's one of those things that happens in the course of a regular season, and we just all are going to work together to make sure that whoever is playing on Sunday is successful.
One of the things he said there, you probably didn't necessarily pick up on, but these comparisons to Robert Griffin III and this false narrative that they pushed him back out onto the field. No, he wanted to play. And what Mariota said is very significant, where he said, early in my career, I felt like I had to be out there all the time. And now he's a 9-year veteran. He's been through the ups and downs. He's been a starter. He's been a backup. He's been cut. All those things have gone on, or not cut, but not renewed in a contract. So he's seen it all. And what he's basically saying is, don't rush yourself back. If you're not ready to go, I'll handle it. As soon as you're ready to go, you got your job back. And, in retrospect, I'm not critical of what Mike Shanahan did. He saw Kirk Cousins sitting there in the 4th round. He didn't think a quarterback at that level would still be there. You have to have 2, so he took him. I don't think he fully understood the personality of RG3, who was very insecure, narcissistic, and didn't feel comfortable with another drafted quarterback on the roster. Had he been in this situation with a guy like Marcus Mariota, who would say, hey, whenever you're ready, Robert, come back, but don't worry about it because your job is always going to be there. That wasn't the case with Robert. I think he looked at Kirk and said, ooh, yeah, he really knows the system better than I do. Mike Shanahan seems to like him better, and he's the one that pushed to come back early. He's the one that pushed him back out on the field. Mariota is saying, relax, kid. It's your job. I'm here. I'm ready. Whenever I'm needed, I'll take over, which is what he said here. This was, again, Mariota yesterday.
If my name is called again, that's just kind of how I'm going to approach it. Throughout my career, I've put a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect, and I think I play my best when I'm enjoying it and having fun. So that's kind of how I've approached it maybe the last couple years, and whatever happens, happens. But I think for the most part, it's just focusing on what I can control and not worrying about everything else.
Yeah, he's in a spot. Let's say he throws 4 touchdowns on Sunday, and Jaden Daniels is healthy enough to play against the Giants a week from Sunday. He's going to play. Daniels is going to play. He knows that. Both sides know that. And that probably takes a lot of pressure off Mariota. Like, I'm going to play the best I can. I'm coming out there loose, but I'm not playing for a job here. This is the job that I have. My job is to be ready when Daniels can't play. The other interesting thing he said yesterday was the way Cliff Kingsbury runs the quarterback room, as they call it now, and it's got 4 guys in it. He says that while they have a game plan for the starting quarterback, he also has plays installed for the backups just in case they have to play. I mean, they could get to Jeff Driscoll this week. You don't know. You hope not, but that's a possibility. And he said it's a very comfortable system to play in and a very fun system to play in.
It's just enjoyable. It's a fun atmosphere to come into. But it's very much like, hey, do what you do. You don't have to be Jaden. You don't have to be Jeff. You don't have to be anybody. You just be you and play your way, and we'll find ways to make it work. So that's really, for me, kind of a unique situation that maybe I haven't been accustomed to. So I've really enjoyed it and just had fun playing in this system.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing coming out of that building that would indicate that there's any kind of trouble. It's so hard to get your head around because for 25 years you've looked at nothing but dysfunction there, and now everything they say, everything they do. We've even got players who've been in other places like Dallas saying how great the facilities are. I mean, they spent a lot of money fixing that up in the offseason. It's amazing how things can turn around quickly if you got the right people making the decisions. Meantime, in New York, and this is I don't know, these could be words that he's going to eat, or maybe he's just going to dig in and go with it no matter what happens. But the Giants are 2-5, as you know. Now, they did have a big win at Seattle, but they've had some ugly losses this year. And, who knows? They might have beaten Washington here if Graham Gano didn't get hurt on the opening kickoff. They were severely handicapped without a kicker. But the record is what it is. It's what former Giants coach Bill Parcells used to say. Your record is – you are what your record is. So now John Mara, the president of the team, who has not been patient in recent years. He had Ben McAdoo for a year and a half, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge. They were out after 2 years. Brian Daboll is in his third year, and so is general manager Joe Shane, who, if you watched Hard Knocks, really made a fool of himself with the Saquon Barkley situation. Say, hey, go shop around. If you don't find what you like, come on back. And he winds up signing with the division rival, which Mara is seen, just pulling his hair out about, oh, my God, we don't want that to happen. Well, it did. This is surprising. Less than halfway through the season, John Mara said yesterday that no matter what, he's not getting rid of Daboll or Shane during the season or after the season. Yeah, he said that's we're gonna stick it out. And Daniel Jones has not been good. That's the one good year that he had under Daboll, 2022. They went 9-7-1, and they beat the Vikings in a wild card game. But last year they went 6-11. And here's John Mara saying, no, we're not going to make any changes during the season or after the season. So he's more or less guaranteeing his coach and general manager a fourth season, when this third one could wind up with, 4 or 5 wins. Whatever. Okay. And, at the end of the season, he could say, I know what I said, but I needed to reassess things. I didn't think X, Y, and Z would happen, and I had to do what I had to do. So, I don't know. But that there was really no reason for him to say that, other than, I guess, to shore up the locker room a little bit. Maybe there's some discussion there. Hey, we got a lame duck coach. I don't know. But it is an odd situation. Bryce Young is going to get another start this week. It's because of a car accident suffered Andy Dalton with his family. Fortunately, nobody seriously injured, but Dalton banged up enough to not be ready to go against Denver this week. So Bryce Young, last year's number 1 pick, who's been benched and played in mop-up duty in an unwinnable game on Sunday, is going to get the start against Denver, and God knows what's going to happen. Mel Kiper with a look at where the career of Bryce Young is headed, plus Robert Ory, who does the Lakers games on TV, with the Bronny wrap-up as to what we saw in the father-son duo in their first game together. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred said yesterday to Dan Patrick that he expects that we will have an automated strike caller, whatever they call that, the electric umpire. We'll have that within 4 years. Wow. Balls and strikes being called by a machine. He said the technology is just about there. They continue to experiment with it in the minor leagues, and he, again, expects it within 4 years. You'll hear some of that conversation coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. Meantime, football rolls on, and Bryce Young, who's been benched into his second year, the number 1 pick of the draft. They ran out of patience with him this year, benched him after a couple of games. Andy Dalton has taken over. He's produced 1 win. If you saw any of the game or all of the game on Sunday against the Commanders, they're an absolute mess. And unfortunately, Andy Dalton was in a car accident with his family. Fortunately, nobody seriously injured, but Dalton is banged up enough so that he won't be able to go. So Bryce Young will get the start against the Denver Broncos. And yesterday, Mel Kiper was on our morning show on Sportsmanlike, and he looked at the career now of Bryce Young, and, through the rear view mirror, he's saying, well, there were some real warning signs here, particularly about size.
So I always had questions about his size, not only his height, but his weight and everything involved in the size. It used to be, well, height's not a factor because Russell Wilson showed at 5'10" and 3/4 he could play. That got Kyler Murray to the number 1 pick overall. So he made Kyler Murray a lot of money. Both those guys made Bryce Young the first pick in the draft because it showed that height doesn't matter. But the weight does. I mean, Russell Wilson was 205, 210 coming out. Kyler Murray was rock solid. Bryce Young was, I thought, 180, 185 at Alabama. He remember got himself to 206 right when he was way, but that wasn't going to be something you could maintain. So the overall size of Bryce Young has shown that it matters. And I know Keyshawn Johnson told me, he said, hey, I've stood on the sidelines over the last couple of years. Guys are bigger, stronger, faster than they've ever been. You can't survive at that height and weight. You just can't. So Keyshawn was one of the only ones that was probably saying, no, he shouldn't be that first pick. But most believed he should have been, and he has not been given a fair shake by the organization. Everything changed from year 1 to year 2. 2 games in, he only played in 1 series of the preseason, which was ridiculous. Are you kidding me? You're bringing in everything new, and you're 1 series of the final preseason game. That's all you're giving him. When other quarterbacks that have played at a high level had multiple games to play in, he had 1 in 1 series. So they didn't handle him well. I hope, Michelle, and guys, I hope he gets a chance at Carolina. But have they turned the page? Some say they have. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfair.
Mel, well said, because Bryce Young hasn't played well, but the reality is they've handled it hard. I mean, they put him into the game in a 40-7 blowout as a number 1 pick in the draft a year ago. You can't do that. That's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. So I think we all agree. We hope he gets another shot, just not there, honestly.
I hope Bryce is a great kid. He's 23 years of age. This is the way the league is now. You don't get 3-4 years like you should or you used to. You're getting, as we say with Bryce Young, a grand total right now of 18 starts. Will Levis has 14 starts. We're kicking these guys to the curb very, very early, and we're destroying them mentally. It's just a shame what's going on with some of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, and they're going to bad organizations. If you're the number 1 pick, chances are the team was horrible the year before, unless, the pick was traded, like in the case of the Bears, where they actually got Carolina's pick to take Caleb Williams this year. But it's a difficult situation, and what's really changed in all of this is the rookie salary cap. Used to be that if you invested $50 million, you were going to see this through as much as you could. Now you don't have to do that. You don't have to pay these guys this kind of money. It's still good money. They're still making $20 million plus a year, but it's also a situation where if it's not working, you have the opportunity to move on and try and find the next guy. And man, after all this wandering in the desert, it looks like Washington's got their guy. Now you could say, oh well, he's already hurt. This is not sustainable. This is game 8, and he can't play. We don't know if he can't play yet, but I would say if you watch the season, he's learned to protect himself better. He took a hit there, and he kind of was tackled in an awkward position, but it's not a serious injury. And apparently, at least that's what Dan Quinn is saying. They're not putting him on injured reserve, which would mean a minimum of 4 games. None of that is happening. And then he's walked into a situation which has improved dramatically. If he was drafted 2 years ago, God knows what he would look like right now. Who knows? But it's such a well-run operation. It's hard to say this, I know it, but it's such a well-run operation now, top to bottom. And you got the right offensive coordinator, you got the right head coach, you got the right circumstances to work into, and also the expectations are not through the roof. And that's another reason I think they're playing it ultra safe this week. I think maybe 2-3 years down the road, if Jaden Daniels has an injury like this and he's established himself and he's comfortable in the system and all that, I think he might play. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any idea about the medicals, but the ultra caution that's going on here is partly due to the fact that they're playing the long game. They're looking at him long term. All right, let me do a little NBA here. We got the other night with the Bronny game where they both came in at the same time. Bronny didn't score 0 for 2 from the field, and he had a shot blocked, and his team was outscored 7-2 when he was on the floor. I mean, the reality is he's not ready for this, but LeBron wanted this to happen. The Lakers do what LeBron wants, and so Bron and Bronny made history. Didn't get quite the excitement I thought it might. It was interesting. It was another story, but it's the first time it ever happened in the NBA, and while it has happened in baseball a couple of times and it's happened in hockey, careers tend to be a lot longer there. The fact that LeBron James at age 39 has a son who's old enough to play with him in the same team in the same game. I mean, it's just what are the odds of that happening? As Brian Windhorst was talking about yesterday, here's Bronny, 20 years old. He's still close to home. Mom and dad live in Los Angeles. I don't know, maybe staying in his own bedroom. I don't know. And LeBron James at 20 was already one of the best players in the NBA, right? Because he came out when he was 18, going on 19. after coming right out of high school. They don't let you do that anymore. But it just goes to show you the difference between father and son there, and talent too, because reality is Bronny, while he may have a decent NBA career, he's not going to be LeBron. This was Robert Horry, does the TV for the Lakers, on with Dan Patrick yesterday, and his observations of what he saw in Game 1 and what the long term might be for LeBron and Bronny.
I think it's all depending on when Vando gets healthy and other guys get healthy, because their roster is stacked. They're full, and there's no disrespect to him. It's just the fact that those guys are veterans. They got a little bit more, they're a little better than him, and he needs a little bit more season. He's like, when I watch him, the one thing that I don't know if they looking at it, but his sense of urgency to get back down the court on defense, it's not how it should be. It's great when he's on ball, but off the ball, he doesn't pay attention to, so if someone sees that, they can hit him with some lobs. But other than that, everybody's going to hate on him because they think that he didn't get there deservingly. But I think the kid has a lot of potential, and he just needs to be, seasoned a little bit more, seasoned vet.
Yeah, I think, get him down to the G League, let him find out what he does well, let him be healthy or get healthier for an entire season, and then you want to bring him up for like the, Christmas Day game, whatever it is, you can bring him up and send him back down, kind of a carrot dangling out there for him.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's perfect. If you look at players around the league, I think one player that he reminds me of is Gary Payton Jr. He's athletic like him. He's strong. And, you have to find a niche. You think about it. Gary Payton Jr. is not a great scorer, but he can D you up. He does all those things that people don't want to do, like dive on the floor, get extra rebounds, extra shots, and stuff like that. So I think he can find a niche like that. He can stay in this league for a minute.
Yeah, join the junior club there, right? Gary Payton Jr. and LeBron Jr., which is what he is. They call him Bronny. I just, reading the things that have been written about him coming aboard, the fact that he's played so little, I just don't know. And, one of the things you think about, because this kind of happened with Tim Raines and Tim Raines Jr. when they played together with the Orioles. Tim Raines Jr. really didn't have much of a career. Could this be like a year where LeBron is saying farewell? He got his kid into the league. He got what he said he wanted to do several years ago, which was play with his son. And then LeBron goes off into the sunset, and whatever becomes of Bronny as an NBA player, we'll have to see. But he could have one of those careers that goes, 2 years, maybe back and forth to the G League, that kind of thing. But there's another angle to this, and that is that LeBron could be Brady, and he could be around for a long, long time. Yeah. This is Ori yesterday with Patrick. The question, could this be the farewell year for LeBron?
No. Hey, Bronny's in the league now. He's going to try to play as many as he can with Bronny James. So, the crazy part about when you watch LeBron's game, it really hasn't changed in the last 6 years. I know his ability to play a lot of minutes is not there, but still, though, when he's on the court, he plays with the same force. You think about that baseline cut, and then he dunked. I'm like, dude, your head is still by the rim. In my 10th year, I could barely get my head by the nets. And I'm 6'10". And so you got to understand, he still has a lot of bounce in him, and the love and the joy. And think about it. When you play sports, you come in as a young man and you become, you have that kid-like love for the game. He's a grown man, 40 years old. He still has that kid-like love, like as a 20-year-old. So I expect him to be around for as long as his body lets him.
Well, that's what I said when people said, LeBron got his son drafted. Okay, if it means LeBron continues to play and he's excited about playing, then I don't view it as a negative. Now,
not at all.
If Bronny's taken a roster spot away from somebody who can truly help this team, then I could see, there would be some negative reaction there. But Bronny is going to be the 12th man if he's even on the roster. But if LeBron is still engaged, because these guys get bored after a while, or you lose that enthusiasm. You're talking about, that youthful attitude that he still has. I can't see that's a negative if I got a guy still giving me 27, 8, and 7.
Exactly. And when you talk about, the top 20 players in the league, this dude's been a top 20 player in the league for 30 years, so he's so great. And that's one of the things that people don't understand, that when the mind goes, you don't want to play no more. For me, I had a sick daughter. My kids were starting to play sports. They were starting to be active. I'm like, what do I want? I want to play basketball? Do I want to miss, parts of their lives? That don't happen with Brian. I know he has 2 other kids, but he got one kid he can go to work with every day. He can try to get this kid to be an elite athlete like he is. And so there's a different type of joy and a different type of love, a different type of push there that's going to keep LeBron James Sr. in this league for about maybe 3 to 4 more years.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Here's something else that you might consider with this. Bronny's on this team because LeBron is his dad. Now, Dan Patrick is right. He's the 12th man. So what's the big deal? He'll play in certain spots, and basically it's a learning year. The limited practice that they have in the NBA, and that's another reason you should be in the G League, because when you in college you practice. In the NBA you don't. There's just no time. There's too many games. You have some shoot-arounds, things like that, but there aren't really practices that you have, and you got to play. And he's not playing, but everybody in that locker room has to hold their tongue. And if these guys, when they get together and they talk, they'll say, hey, I know so-and-so, and he's in the G League, and he's 3 times as good as Bronny, and he could help us out, but he can't get a roster spot because of Dad. We'll see how long that lasts. Nepotism is an interesting thing here, which brings us to the Mystics. And Mike Tebow, who is the winningest coach in the history of the WNBA, and who led the Mystics to the WNBA championship in 2019, and 2 years ago turned over the team to his son, Eric. They're both out. There's a new guy running the show. He's the president of Monumental Basketball, or is he president of hockey too? I think it's just basketball. Michael Winger. And he's gotten rid of the Tebows. They got out of the Tebow business yesterday with the Mystics. Things have dropped off a lot. Well, some of it has to do with Elena Delle Donne not playing. She hasn't played the last 2 years because of a back injury. I believe she's still on the roster. I don't know how that works, but I don't really see what they mean by this. It says Winger says it has little to do with the standings. It has little to do with the win-loss streaks or anything like that. It has mostly to do with an organizational identity. What the hell does that mean? Organizational identity. This guy's done a great job. And look, he did get fortunate in getting Elena Delle Donne. There's no question about that. He was able to make a trade for her with Chicago. And that was before the 2017 season, and she went on to make 3 All-Star games and won her second MVP in 2019 when they won the title. But, that was an advantage that he had because, I don't know if you're familiar with Elena Delle Donne's story, but she's very, very close with her sister, who's both deaf and blind, and the family lives in Delaware. And Washington is the closest team to Delaware. So that was a huge advantage in getting one of the best players in the league, and a player, who's won MVPs and was instrumental in them winning the championship. There's that. But, I don't, what does he mean by identity? And who's going to give the Mystics a new identity? Is there any coach that has star power in the WNBA? I don't think so, right? I mean, unless you get one of the star coaches from college basketball, maybe that can happen. You see if you can get Brenda Freese from Maryland. I don't know. The league doesn't pay that kind of money. I don't know. Then you also have what looks like it's going to be a work stoppage here. The players have opted out of the collective bargaining agreement. They hope to have a new one in place for the 2026 season. But if there is a work stoppage, what happens there in terms of salary structure and things like that. There's an expansion team coming in, the Golden State Valkyries, who are going to arrive for next season. And, you have to protect players and so forth. They have to make some decisions there. I guess Winger can do that. But I just don't quite get this. And you could say, well, what was he doing hiring his son? And this is what Mike Tebow said about it last month. He says, I know the people that want to be haters will say, hey, somebody like him, meaning his son, got his job because of his dad or nepotism or whatever. This is a coach who has turned down other head coaching jobs in this league. He wanted to wait for this particular job when somebody has been a major part of building a team that won a championship and was a huge factor in that. I look sideways when fans just dismiss that as not being important when you make hiring decision. I think he's done an exceptional job of keeping people on task and being innovative when you have many injuries. And they have had many injuries. They've lost star players. So, I mean, I guess it's hard to get worked up about a change at the top of a WNBA team. But I think Mike Tebow has done a great job here. And I'm really surprised, especially from a public relations standpoint, that they would do that. But they did it. And we'll see who Winger comes up with to run the whole show. Also, this from the NBA last night, and I was just thinking about the number that Steve Ballmer spent to build what is a Clippers-only arena. I'm sure they'll have concerts and other things there, but it's the Intuit Dome. It's in Inglewood, which is where the old Forum was. He didn't want to be a co-tenant at the sparkling Staples Center. So he has moved his team to an arena that he built with his own money for $2 billion. And I was thinking about when the baseball stadium was in the works here, where the Nats play, from the city council, Linda Kropp, this is going back 20 years ago. The Nats were going to move from Montreal, but it was contingent on them having a stadium deal. They knew they were going to have to play at RFK for 3 years, but if they didn't have a deal in place to build the stadium, they weren't going to stay there forever, so Washington was not a viable option. And so it was all predicated on them having a stadium deal. And Linda Kropp fought and fought and fought over what was about $100 million. Now, that's a lot of money. But she thought, oh, my God, the city's not going to be able to recoup the tax revenue. They had a plan. I think it was like a 30-year plan or something. They reached it in 6. That's how much tax revenue they got. And if you've been down to Nats Park recently and have seen all the restaurants and shops and things that have sprung up around Nats Park, they've done very, very well with that. The baseball team was a huge thing. But the money 20 years ago versus the money now, and Ballmer's a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, so he, spending $2 billion to build a new arena is not a big deal. But just think, he goes, nah, I don't want to be a co-tenant. Staples Center is great, or I don't even know if it's even called the Staples Center anymore, but it's where the Lakers play. And you'd think, okay, that's good, that's fine. Nope, got to have your own place. And here's something else about this new arena. Which they found out about last night. It's got something that they call the wall. And what it is a steep section of fans behind the basket closest to the visitor's bench. And the way they have it set up, it says it has 51 uninterrupted rows of seats, but the first 13 rows are filled with Clippers diehard fans whose fandom is vetted by the franchise beforehand. So they decide whether they're rabid enough, and the fans in those first 13 rows are expected to stand and chant for the entire game and create an atmosphere similar to a college student section. And I've been through this, believe me. I went to see my daughter at Wisconsin when she was in school there, and we went to a football game, and she got me a ticket in the student section. You have to stand up the whole game. I mean, this is years ago. I couldn't do it now with my back, but in those days, I was in my 50s, and it was tough. And I tried to sit down. They said, no, you got to stand up. The only time you can sit down is at halftime. So you have to stand up the whole game. And I guess these fans behind the basket are supposed to create a distraction. Now, this is, if you've been to games in Maryland, they have also the steep wall, and they have all these different heads that they show and these sparkly things and circly things. Doesn't seem to create a distraction. But Kevin Durant, longtime veteran, 17 years in the NBA, an 88.4 career free throw shooter, missed two, which ultimately helped to force the game into overtime. Now, the Suns wound up winning, and he later drilled a 15-footer to force the overtime, and they won the game 116-113. But Durant said, yeah, he said that it was crazy. I was just staring at it the whole time. You're not used to that. So, it didn't produce a win for Ballmer, but it did do its intended consequence, which was distracting a free throw shooter and not some rookie. One of the best players ever to play the game, was in his 17th year, missed 2. And, we'll see as players adjust to that. But, all the technology and all the different things that they do to make it more of a home court advantage, I guess that works. The Wall has a high-tech 4K Halo board, the largest double-sided Halo display in an arena setting, and it's almost a full acre long, perhaps the 2 biggest features that make it unlike any other NBA arena. $2 billion. No big deal. Just, I remember when Jerry Jones was building his place, and that's going back 20 years ago. That was over $1 billion. And people, $1 billion for a football stadium. This is, 1/4 the size. It's $2 billion. Wow. Crazy. Coming up in the next hour, some interesting stuff from Nick Allegretti on facing his boyhood team. He grew up in Chicago, grew up a Bears fan, and now he gets to play them on Sunday. We'll get to that, plus Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, with Dan Patrick. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Automated strike zone. It's coming in baseball in the next 4 years, says the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred. We'll hear him say that in a conversation with Dan Patrick from yesterday. We'll get to that very shortly. Commanders, will they have Jaden Daniels on Sunday? Didn't practice yesterday. We don't know. Could he be on the field today? We'll find out. And there really won't be an update on the chances he plays until tomorrow from Dan Quinn. That's the way the schedule works. The coach talks to the media on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes on Saturday. No, not always. But, yeah, it's going to be probably a game-time decision, and it's smart. You keep the Bears guessing. Is it going to be Marcus Mariota or is it going to be Jaden Daniels? And, frankly, I'd like to see Jaden Daniels. I'm going to the game on Sunday. Love to see him play against the guy who went ahead of him in the draft, Caleb Williams. But Marcus Mariota looks like he's perfectly fine running this offense. And although the Bears may be the best defense that they played all year, they can possibly win this game. They can win this game, and especially when you have a healthy Brian Robinson, that makes a big difference. He had 71 yards and a touchdown last week, so having him back is huge. Here's another angle on this, and Scott Abraham of Channel 7 does a really good job. He really hustles to get a whole bunch of interviews, and he puts them up on Twitter, which is very convenient for me. And I've talked to him about this. I think Nick Allegretti, if he sticks around here, has a chance to be a media star. And I go back to the days of the Hogs. They all did broadcasting. I did post-game shows with Joe Jacoby for 10 years. I worked with Mark May, both locally and at ESPN. He had a long run at ESPN, mostly as a college football analyst, but also knew pro football very well. One year I did the pre- and the post-game show for ESPN at a Super Bowl with him. I did some work with Jeff Bostic over the years. George Stark, the head hog, I did a lot of work with him. They all the linemen, the offensive linemen, they're smart guys. They're really good at analyzing football. And I see Nick Allegretti, if he sticks around here, having a media career. And I've told Scott that you ought to find him after every game and during the week because he's really insightful. And he was again yesterday as Scott talked to him in the locker room as they prepare to face a team that he grew up rooting for.
Yeah, absolutely. Grew up a Bears fan. Probably about 30 minutes from Soldier Field. So definitely followed them for a long time.
What is this like for you? I'm sure you play them when you're in Kansas City, but, always playing your hometown team, team you cheered for growing up, and now kind of a dream scenario in a sense, right?
Absolutely. It's pretty cool. It's one of those things that when you get on the field and you see the logo, it's surreal. I watched just about every Bears game I could growing up. So no, that's a big part of my life. It's one of the reasons that I love football. So, yeah, I appreciate that organization.
All right, no number 5 at practice today. Was that a little different?
Yeah, but I mean, we've taken plenty of reps with Marcus throughout the summer, and he's an incredible professional. One of the things that I was thinking about is Marcus is one of the best leaders on this team. So Jaden's obviously our guy. We love him, want him to be healthy, want him to be out there, but the leadership that we've gotten from Marcus has been awesome. So if he's the guy, we're ready to roll. So yeah, it's been great.
I mean, what kind of luxury is that to have somebody with that type of veteran background that's been through the ups and downs in the NFL, and you can kind of seamlessly put him under center?
I mean, that's huge, and I say that's something that I confidently say I don't think every team in the league has that. Having two guys that you are confident in that huddle. We have honestly a great quarterback room, so that is a very valuable part of this team, and really appreciate having Jaden, having Marcus. It's been awesome.
You mentioned when I talked to you on Sunday kind of the hunger of this team, and as each week goes by, each game kind of gets bigger and bigger. This is another bigger one, NFC opponent.
Yeah.
How are you guys approaching this game?
Again, just have to keep it within itself. We have this week, we have the Bears trying to go 1-0 this week. Again, it's still early, not making the playoffs with 5 wins, so we've got to continue to win every game that we can. And continue to grow, continue to progress. So yeah, excited for this week.
Yeah, it's a simple thing, but it's a good way to phrase it. You're not going to make the playoffs with 5 wins. So yeah, you got to keep on winning. And this guy has been a part of 3 Super Bowl teams and expresses how the team is in very simple and smart terms. So that's Nick Allegretti. Also, very good conversation from Scott with Cleveland Farrell, defensive end. Who's been around the league a little bit and comes here and actually has been very complimentary of the facilities and things like that. Such a breath of fresh air going on in Ashburn these days. And he talked about identity, creating the identity. And this is the modern NFL, and it's college football now too with the transfer portal. Each year is different. Used to be, each team had a core of players, 7-8 years. It's a different team year to year. What this team looks like this year, hopefully is going to be somewhat similar to last year, but it's totally different than it was last year. They turned over half the roster. It's new ownership. It's a general manager. It's a new coaching staff, the whole thing. And this team, the 2024 team, is the one that creates the identity, and this is what Cleveland Farrell discussed with Scott Abraham yesterday.
That's the beauty of the NFL. I tell people this every year, being in this league, whether it's as an individual, as a player, or as a team. When we came in OTAs April, the team that came in that locker room in that team meeting for the first time, they hadn't lost any games and they hadn't won any games. So that means that we get to write our own history. Even if it's just for 1 year, we don't know who will be on the team next year. We don't even know who will be, if somebody will still have the same coaches, but at the same time, all we got is right now. And for us, it's working out, so far. So just trying to keep this momentum, keep building, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
We've talked to a couple of defensive players today, and everyone said they're kind of ticked off they didn't get that shutout on Sunday. And you know what? That was probably one of your best performances collectively as a defense. How can you build on that performance on Sunday and bring it through the rest of the year?
I mean, that's good to hear you saying that because obviously, regardless of what people think, you try to play to a standard every week. You don't try to play to whoever you're playing against. It's to a standard because at the end of the day, we're all trying to build towards, playing in those games in December, hopefully January, February. So it's not even just so much about playing to who you're playing against, but if you try to play to a standard every week, then come that November, December, January, February, if you make it that far, you'll be hitting your stride right when you really need to. So that's the thing.
The luxury of having like a Marcus Mariota, veteran that's been there, done that, to help maybe lead this offense on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I love about Cliff and everybody that has in that quarterback room, Jaden, Marcus, Jeff, anybody. So even Sam too, all these guys are dynamic. And one thing that I love is just how well everybody knows the offense. So regardless of whoever's out there, I feel like I have confidence just in us as a team. And everybody, can play at a high level. Marcus, I've been his teammate for forever, back when we was on the Raiders together. So seeing him go out there and have success last week was nothing new for me. I just know he takes it one game at a time, and that's a pro's pro. So I think he's somebody that, whether he's playing or not, everybody can get behind.
That's another thing about the modern NFL when you listen to these news conferences. They've all played with some of these guys in other places, and as they look at matchups coming up the upcoming week, oh yeah, I played with him in Cleveland. Oh, I played with him in Dallas. Yeah, oh sure. And that's how the league works now, and it is year to year. It more so than it's ever been, and that's why what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to do, win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years in this era. Are you kidding me? It's crazy. The free agency era, set that aside because that's now gone back to the early 90s. So it's over 30 years with free agency. But on top of that, because of the way the money has gone and the ability to eat relatively large contracts and wanting to move on, that there's just no patience anymore. You don't ride it out with a guy, and you just move on to the next guy. And if you have to pay off, so what? The contracts, a lot of these have off ramps anyway. So it's a changing league. It's a revolving door each year with each team. And if you can put together a dynasty like the Kansas City Chiefs have done in this era, it's remarkable. And it helps, of course, if you have one of those guys. And it looks like through 7 games, Washington has one of those guys. Whether he's going to be available this week, we don't know. But you hear the players talking about a guy like Marcus Mariota who's ready to step in and ready to go. There wasn't really anything from Daniels yesterday. Wasn't anything at all. He wasn't available to the media whatsoever. And usually, he does his Wednesday news conference. That's the way it works. The starting quarterback for every team is required to do a news conference on Wednesday. So they were left to ask Mariota, who did the news conference in the Wednesday spot, what he's seeing from Jaden and how, because nobody's able to talk to Jaden, how he's doing with all this.
Oh, he's handled it unbelievably. I think every test that he's gotten, he's passed with flying colors, right? And this is no different. He's in here early. He's in here the whole time just getting treatment. He's doing his best to give himself a shot to play. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. There's a lot of guys that I've been around through the course of my career where I don't feel great. I might just kind of take the week off. But he's very engaged in this. He's very invested. And the way he's approached it is very much similar to how he's approached week by week. And I think it's a lot of credit to him and who he is. And again, it's going to take all of us in the quarterback room to make sure whatever or whoever it is ready to roll.
Yeah, and they spending a lot of time on the mental reps. They know he's not going to take a lot of the physical reps. But if it comes down to the last minute, if he wakes up on Sunday morning and he feels great, I don't think they'll hesitate to start Daniels. But Mariota ready to take the reign. And they may even, it may even go like this, that they start Daniels. I don't think they want him to get re-injured. But let's say they clear him to play and he's out there and he's not looking good. Well, they've already gone through a game like this at home last week where they could turn to Mariota if they need to. But I don't think they want to do that. And given the way this year sets up, where they're playing the long game with Jaden Daniels, I think if there's any question, he's not going to start on Sunday, and it's going to be Mariota. A couple of other things yesterday from Dan Quinn as he held his Wednesday news conference. It was the first time he was able to comment on the release of Jamin Davis, which happened on Tuesday, as they... As in the rearview mirror, the Ron Rivera era looks worse and worse and worse. 3 of the 4 draft picks that he took number 1 are gone. And the 4th one, Emmanuel Forbes, he did get a pick last week, but his future looks, I would say, a little bit shaky. And Quinn, of course, took the high road on this, but he looked at the release of Davis, who they tried to convert from a linebacker to a defensive end. They tried to do that, couldn't do it, made him inactive a couple of games as a scratch, healthy scratch. And he just went with the route of, just not a fit with what we do.
It's just a matter of absolutely when change happens, things move, and systems change and people change. And so coaching and scouting and players, it's all part of big shifts that go. Oftentimes, if the schemes are very similar, there would probably be less. But no, honestly, just digging into just find edges all over the place. And so when guys move on from here, I'm hopeful wherever they go, they find the right combination, the right things to allow them to do their thing. So that's my hope for anybody that goes on from here.
And he'll catch on, I'm sure, with somebody this year because of injuries. Somebody's going to need somebody who can rush the passer. And at times he did have some flashes, but clearly was not a fit for what they wanted to do here. Last thing from Quinn yesterday, and he's seemingly asked about this week to week, but we're coming up on midseason here. We will be even not quite through midseason since it's 17 games, but it's game number 8, so we'll be almost there. And kind of week to week, he's asked, where is this team? So here is the update. Here's the game check, the team check. Let's put it that way from Dan Quinn from yesterday.
Yeah, I think we're making progress. I think you kind of talk first piece like a foundation is being built for that, but we're not there yet. There's another level to get to, and that's what I was referring to today about how do we get to the next spot. I had talked to the team about foundation of our brotherhood. There's another level. What about our physicality? There's another level. What about the communication at the line? There's another level. And so those are the things that you want to take the next steps to. I like it in the run game of what I've seen. I like it on the special teams side of things. I felt it, when at a line of scrimmage yesterday, in the last game, I really felt that. So it's about finishing. It's about toughness. And we're not where it's going to end up, but we're making strides on that. And that's what this time is for. Like, you don't wait. Like, go. Do it now. Like, there is no waiting. Like, you absolutely go for it again.
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you? Week to week. So that was Quinn yesterday. This is something, and I love sports history. This was not on my radar. There's a NASCAR race in 1971. So we're going back over 53 years here. Hall of Fame driver Bobby Allison, 53 years later, has been declared the winner of the 1971 Myers Brothers 250 at Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which I don't even know still exists. But this decision was announced yesterday. And he was, I guess Allison must be pretty old now. And the NASCAR CEO, Jim France, visited Allison to inform him of the recognition of this. I don't even know if you remembered that he was in this race. The race, the final Cup Series race to date at one of racing's most hallowed venues, had officially had no winner for 53 years. The lack of resolution sprung from a dispute over the make of Allison's car, a Ford Mustang that was perceived to give him an unfair advantage over competitors in the quarter-mile track. And after his victory, Richard Petty freaked out. He was angry about this, so he filed a complaint with NASCAR that resulted in Allison losing the victory. Regaining it allows him to move ahead of Darrell Waltrip for sole possession of fourth place on the Cup Series all-time wins list. NASCAR's top division will return to Bowman Gray Stadium. Oh, it's still there in February for the annual clash. How about that? Yeah, 1971. 1971 was when this race was. I mean, and I guess it was the car he had was too souped up or whatever for the liking of Richard Petty. And so it just sat there. Nobody could make a decision for over 50 years. And finally go, oh, yeah, Bobby Allison, he really won. Well, he won 53 years ago. But because Petty, I mean, usually when you file a dispute, they settle it in a couple of days, maybe a week, 2 weeks. No, 53 years. 53 years later, Bobby Allison got a win. I wonder if he celebrated. I wonder how he celebrated. Probably celebrated by going to bed a little later, like 9:30. Who knows? Crazy. All right, coming up, Bram Weinstein. Tomorrow's Friday. We do Ravens preview, so I will be back then at 9 a.m. See you then.